Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Breathe Life into Work panel discussion. My name is Ryan Belkley, and I am a Customer Success Manager here at Microsoft, based in San Francisco. We have an amazing panel of leaders from different parts of Microsoft that will be discussing their take on remote and hybrid work, what they have learned, and how Microsoft can empower us all to stay productive while keeping well-being in mind. Before we do that, let's go through some housekeeping. So as a reminder, your video and microphone will not be in use today. However, we do have a Q&A chat that you can ask questions in. For accessibility and playback options, you can click on the cog or gear icon. You can also access closed captions and subtitles here as well. And you can access video player settings and options. We have a lot to celebrate today. Not only is it St. Patrick's Day and I'm wearing green, but it's also the 4th birthday for teens. And to help celebrate, we have gifts. At the end of the discussion, we will drop a survey link into chat. It's anonymous, but you can share your contact information to enter our raffle for a Surface Headphones 2 or one of 10 Bose Bluetooth audio sunglasses. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our panel. We have Katie Brown, Vice President of the West Region, Cyril Belikov, General Manager, Marketing and Operations, Modern Work and Security, US, and Caruana Gatimu, Principal Manager, Customer Advocacy Group within the Microsoft Teams Engineering Organization. Hi, Katie. My first question goes to you. On our last webinar, you spoke about how you are doing things as a leader to address employee burnout. And you mentioned things like giving people half day off on Friday and reducing internal meetings. I'm curious, what have you learned since making those changes, and have they been worthwhile?
Yeah, so good morning. It is great to be here, and I always appreciate to be part of this session and this panel. So, great question. And it's, first of all, to start with a question, as it has been absolutely worthwhile. Let's be honest, we've been working at home for the past year, and it has been incredibly challenging for all of us. And some of the changes that we made, what I have found, have really energized folks. So one of the changes we give half-day Friday, so laptops down at 1 o'clock, and that's everyone, myself included, and it's just really time for the employees to catch up if they want to. We try and discourage that, but really to spend time on themselves and well-being and their family. And what I'm hearing is like, wow, I'm so productive that first half of the day. I get everything done because I so look forward to that time that I'm going to get in the afternoon, and I feel more energized going into the weekend. And I'm in this moment of gratitude and gratefulness, on Monday, and they're like, I'm ready to go at it, again on Monday. So it has, we've gotten tremendous feedback, and in some ways I'm seeing productivity go up, and which has been great to see.
Yeah, I can say as someone who works in your organization, I definitely appreciate the half-day Fridays. It's a great opportunity to not only catch up on things that I may have not been able to do just with the busy work week, but also just once in a while, it's nice to have that afternoon off. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. I did have one follow-up question for you. I want to know, and I'm curious, what gains did you see from using time differently? And do you expect these changes to remain in place as people start to go back to the office? Because that's something I know that we're discussing internally and our customers are grappling as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there is any going back to how we used to work, honestly. I think the way in which we work and how we work has changed forever. And I think going forward, it's going to be much more of a hybrid approach. I even just take myself, for instance, who I never, ever worked at home. In fact, I had to create a space for me to work because I was always in the office or on the road or out with customers. And many people sort of felt that way. And that was kind of somewhat the culture, at Microsoft. And so now we're realizing that, wow, we can work remotely securely from anywhere at any time. And so we're thinking about it's going to be much more of a hybrid approach moving forward. I mean, even if you just look at local, jurisdictions or some of the restrictions that are going to be in place, you're going to have to be at 25 to 50% capacity when we first go back in. And then the other thing I'd say is, employees, health and well-being will be first and foremost in every situation. And I think it's going to be optional for a long while. And so we've got to figure out, how do we continue to embrace this hybrid remote work life, honestly. And then I think the thing that we've also talked a lot about is the reason why it works right now is because everybody is working remotely, right? And so, but when we're more in this hybrid state, so how do you make people feel more inclusive as part of the conversation? So you have some people at home, some people in the office, some people in a conference room. Like, how do you make that feel like more of an inclusive experience so you're still all together? And that's going to be really important as we take that into consideration, as well. Some of the changes we've made, like half-day Fridays, boy, my plan is to keep those in place and not to change anything. And
I love that.
And the main reason is I honestly feel as if our productivity has gone up. I feel like there is less burnout. People are having more balance. I think people are more efficient with their time. And I think that outweighs everything else. And so that's currently our intention.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie.
Sure.
Cyril, next question for you. We made this announcement about Microsoft Viva, and I'm sure our customers heard about this. Can you explain this new concept of employee experience?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It's great to be here, and happy St. Patrick's Day and happy birthday to Teams. It's certainly great to be here with all of you. And it's really a good connection to what Katie was talking about. And there's a lot in EXP, so let's take it a little piece at a time. Just about every customer and leader I speak to is really grappling with how to make this world more sustainable for themselves, their people, their organization. And so during the last year and before that, we've been doing a ton of research and being students of really this change, listening to customers, commissioning that research, analyzing data from our own cloud services, and really following the science, really. And while we don't have all the answers, we've gained a ton of valuable insights to help guide us and our customers and our product investments as to what is really needed out there. Now, a few stats sort of stick in my head a lot. The first one is, organizations with highly engaged employees have like 20+% more productivity and profitability. And so employee engagement has become really important. Then 94% or 95% of employees say they would stay with their company longer if they were invested in learning and knowledge growth. That's really important. People want to grow and want to get better. And then 80+% of top performing companies reported that training programs boost employee engagement. So there's this relationship between engagement, training, and well-being that sort of Katie was touching on that's become quite important for leaders out there. And so there's never been a bigger need for technology, insights, data that are designed to help this employee experience, regardless of employee type or employee location. And as we know, location has become less and less relevant in the last year. So, when you think about employees, they want to feel more connected, more aligned to the company purpose and mission. They want to grow, they want to have impact. Leaders, they really need a modern way to engage and develop employees. Like the old in-person way is still there and will come back, at some point. But they need new scalable ways, digital ways to do that. And then there's our IT friends. IT needs to be able to quickly enable this modern experience without having to rip and replace all the existing systems. So this concept of an employee experience platform, or EXP, is a new approach and a new category of technology solutions that help with all of this. In summary, I would say, an EXP really puts people at the center and brings them their work systems and their support systems into a really integrated experience. And so I see you opening your mouth, wanting to ask another question.
No, I think that's a great setup, and thank you for that. I like how you described it as being a new category, because I think that's a good way to describe it. I'm wondering if you can expand on what is Viva? What is it exactly that we announced?
Yeah, so I'm pleased you asked those questions in that order, because Viva is Microsoft's employee experience platform. And we brought this to market based on all this research and insight. And Viva really brings together communications, insights, knowledge, learning into the flow of everyday work and collaboration inside Microsoft Teams. And so Microsoft Teams has seen great adoption from all of our customers here on the call, and is today where most remote and hybrid work really happens. And so it's become this hub, and we want to build on top of that. So Microsoft Viva builds on this foundation by adding innovative new services, insights focused on people development and their success. And so, as you can see, I see there's a slide up. Viva today has 4 modules, and there'll be more to come. But let's quickly hit on a few of them. So connections. Think about connections as a branded employee experience in Teams, sort of like an intranet, but something that is curated and a gateway to that employee experience with personalized information, news, communication, tasks, resources, really the hub for somebody to come in and see an intranet, their HR benefits, and even some links off to the other components within Microsoft Viva. Then there's Insights. So Insights brings together what some people will know as workplace analytics and my analytics, really insights of their daily functions, and give them ideas and tips and tricks on how to improve, who to collaborate with, maybe people they used to be connected with that they're no longer connected with. Hints and tips on like, hey, you've been working, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Maybe you need to breathe a little bit, and maybe you need to take some time off. Maybe you need, a break in the middle of the day, or shorten your meetings. Sort of things like Katie was talking about, but prompts inside Teams for the end user to really think about what they might be able to do in terms of managing their well-being or their mental health. Then there's Topics. Topics is really interesting. I sort of call this AI auto magic. And Topics really monitors the company's infrastructure, communications, and documents, and really brings together an AI view of a Wikipedia type page on something that's been discussed, and automatically builds that page out. And so it automatically brings knowledge together and allows people to start collaborating on a topic in a central way, and then editing that particular topic or Wikipedia page. A very powerful, hard to describe right now, but really powerful way that people can share information. And then finally, learning. We discussed learning. It's top of mind for a lot of people. So how do people get learning in their place of work? Places that they can go, get learning paths, get themselves trained, and really work together between when they're collaborating, getting their work done, and getting their training done all at once. So that's sort of Viva and how it fits together. I know there's a lot there. It takes time to get your head around it. So, do a little bit more reading for those people out there, and I'm sure you'll get it pretty soon. But that's sort of Viva and EXP and sort of how that fits together.
Thank you, Cyril. So you're right, it is a lot to take in, and even we at Microsoft, myself included, are still learning about it. I think for all the attendees out there, we will be dropping a link into the chat. We have a great video and some more resources where you can learn a little bit more about Microsoft Viva, and feel free to reach out to any of your Microsoft contacts for more information. So thank you, Cyril. So Caruana, I want to go to you next. Katie mentioned what her team and others within Microsoft are doing to address fatigue and employee experience. And Cyril just talked about Microsoft Viva and what Microsoft as a whole is doing and how we're working with customers. I'm curious to know what have you seen and heard from within the engineering organization? Because I think you have a unique perspective, as well as maybe from some customers that you've talked to.
Thank you. That's a great question, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and hello to everyone out there. Thanks for giving us your valuable time and attention today. There's a couple of things I think it's valuable to focus on. Obviously, in engineering, we're a process and data-driven group, right? And I think sometimes people forget that when you think about productivity and well-being, these aren't squishy topics that we made up because of a global pandemic. There's a tremendous amount of research about how you create a productive and inclusive environment and the gains that you make as an organization. And so, you know, I think that the resurgence of interest in that sort of research has been very well founded. And we're really using that and feedback directly from our customers to guide the investments that we make. I'm thrilled about Microsoft Viva. I sit in Teams engineering, but most of the work I historically, do and certainly do now is about the modern workplace in general and Microsoft 365 more broadly. And when I think about that, I think about three things that categories I kind of put the feedback into. The first is about people. Right. At the end of the day, the features that we deliver as Microsoft are only as important as the folks who are using them and getting value out of them. So there's a large focus we have at Microsoft on helping our customers to drive adoption, whether it's the site adoption.microsoft.com, engaging with our fast track leaders, our customer success units. We have a lot of free help to help organizations get the most out of the products we deliver. And you really do have to meet people where they are. Sometimes we talk about something, brand new and shiny, but people are still trying to understand meeting options in Microsoft Teams. So I encourage folks to understand, where are employees in your organization? What are they already using? Are you using Microsoft Forms to get feedback from them so that they can tell you what they need to learn more about, right? But because then there's the process. Do you have an active way of engaging with employees in your organization to drive continuous learning? Because what we know for sure is that, especially when you are working at home during a pandemic, your ability to learn is wholly dependent upon your ability to relax and manage the stress that you may be under. I'm very privileged here in my house. I have a home office. I don't mind working from home. I miss people. I miss traveling. But I don't have some of the distractions that other folks may have. So it's really important to be thinking about the process of learning and having meaningful meetings and using something like Microsoft Viva or Teams in the context of compassion for the employee's physical environment and mental state. And then I think that the last thing is about the products themselves. Sometimes I see people who have rolled out Microsoft Teams in what we call a rapid deployment. And they, because we all had to just go home, right? And now is the time where I like to say you need to polish up that deployment. Make sure you have the right policies in place. Make sure that you have turned on access to all of the first party and Microsoft apps that are available in Microsoft Teams. Many people don't know about using, OneNote and Word and, Forms and Power Automate inside of Teams. And it really is where you get the power of the suite together. I love Teams for meetings and sessions like this. And of course, we just announced webinars, and Teams is a great collaboration and communication tool, but you get the most out of it when you think of it as a part of the Microsoft 365 suite. And now we've got Viva coming to that table and bringing tremendous power with that employee experience platform into that experience. I don't know who out there may have heard Satya's keynote at Ignite, but he talked about Teams as being the organizing layer of your work. And that is really something that I think people need some assistance with, in terms of, how do I best design teams and channels? How do I best design the productivity processes in my organization? How do I modernize them? And that's what we talk about in the Worldwide Champions community. It's our free community. You can find information out about that at the site that's going to be included in the deck at the end. But we talk about new features, but we also talk about really driving adoption and things that you can do in your organization to help people get the most from what is out there. It's really important for people to remember that without people being able to exhale, they can't learn. So come from compassion, understand the product space, and make sure you're really driving productivity by having an ongoing adoption plan in your organization that selects themes and is tuned in to how the different roles in your organization may be feeling. And I just want to commend the other leaders at Microsoft for these no meeting Fridays and half day Fridays. I'm one of those people in engineering that has been working 7 days a week for a while. And I'll tell you that burnout is a real thing. And you know, don't let anyone tell you that these sorts of adjustments like 25 and 50-minute meetings instead of back-to-back, or no meeting Fridays, half-day Fridays. These sorts of things really, really matter to employees, both from a personal perspective of having a better experience at work, but also because of the productivity gains. Employees are your greatest resource in any organization. So everything you do to invest in their health and well-being and a fluid, productive experience is going to come back to you for sure.
Definitely. I love the way you described it. I always talk to customers about teams as a journey. I mean, there's so much you can do within teams, and you got to start somewhere, and you know, you kind of grow with it, and there's so many great and amazing things that you can add into it. So I love the way you describe that. And I think there's so much more coming that's just really exciting. But I think I want to pick up on the last thing you just mentioned, which is really focusing on that well-being part, because I think that's so important for everyone and for every organization right now. And so I'm curious, I want to go and expand this question to the entire panel. And I'd like to know, what are 2 or 3 things that each of you individually do, you know, personally, to empower your well-being? And so, Katie, maybe we can start with you. And again, I want this to be interactive. Please, you know, build off each other, but just really curious, because I think it's so important to the people attending today. Like, what are we doing? What are you doing individually to empower your well-being? Oh, Katie, I can't.
Let's start that again. My apologies. My dog was barking, so I had to put it on mute for a minute. But anyway,
it happens to all of us, and I'm glad. Actually, I think it's good that happened, because it happens to all. I have a dog too, and it just makes it real. This is what we're all dealing with.
It's real here. There's a lot going on outside that door right now. But anyway. No, I mean, I think it's such an important question, because the volume of work hasn't stopped. And I think many people will say they're working harder than they ever have. And I think on average, they say that people are working 25%, you know, more. And so your health and well-being is so incredibly important. And so the things that, you know, we can do as leaders to be the role model and the example are so important. So a couple of things that I'm trying very hard. One is sleep, believe it or not. Badge of honor used to be 4 to 5 hours a night, not so much anymore. I'm working very hard to get 6 to 7, which frankly is still not enough. Another one is just setting some, you know, boundaries in my day and trying not to start my meetings before 8, and really try to wrap things up, you know, before dinner as much as I possibly can. It's hard, you know, but every night having dinner with my family is incredibly important. So I've never had that opportunity, you know, before. You know, another one is, you know, just walking one-on-ones, you know, and so the only thing I would say is, if you're not going to be on video, because I do need a break from video, as we all do, is just, I always just let the person know, like, hey, would you mind if we go for a walk? And maybe you want to do that as well, because if their expectation is you're going to be on video. And then, you know, as we've already talked about, you know, just cutting those meetings short. There's no reason for 30-minute meetings. 25 minutes is plenty of time. Or, you know, 50 minutes, you know, it's or 45, but I'll tell you, don't do 45, because then people will see that 15-minute window and then they'll grab that. So 50 is good. And so you just kind of wanted a little bit of a break, but that's really important for my sanity throughout the day.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie. Appreciate the insight. Cyril, what about you?
Yeah, you know, first of all, just to be real, you know, while this was all going on, my moment was having my teenage daughter walk in and needing something from the printer right here. She had a test happening right now. Of course, she printed it 2 days ago, but had to pick this moment to walk into the room. And she is a serial sort of offender on that one. I have lots of 100-person presentations with our CEO's direct reports, where she's literally printed on the fly using the Wi-Fi printing password. And yeah, so life is real, and I think we, to your point, we just got to give each other, grace. For me, while it's not for everybody, exercise is important to me. I think, Katie mentioned a little bit about that. I try to get, 3 times a week just to clear my head, get the heart rate up. And I found when I do that and be consistent with that, more important now that we're sort of working from home, more important than ever. I also try, we try to do 30-minute family lunches, like we all are, schooling from home, doing our own, work from home, just to get together for 15, 25, 30 minutes each day, just to connect and stay sane, I guess. And then, sometime during the day, a few of us try to get together and go for another 30-minute walk, maybe at 4 p.m. or 4:30 p.m., just to break it up, and then come back and close out the day on a few tasks before shutting it down. So, breaking the day out, not staying seated, and then connecting with my family. What I learned was, of course, I knew the family's made up of introverts and extroverts and the sliding scale in between. So the introverts might be okay, but the extroverts sort of need people to interact with. And they are the introverts because they don't get to go and spend time with other people. We're all locked down together. And so the introverts sort of become important for the extroverts. So, breaking out of your shell and spending 5 minutes with somebody with a quick cup of coffee, just to hey, there's a human being here, and you don't have to wait 8 or 10 hours to interact with somebody. So, lots of lessons from my side, small things, big things on the personal side. And then, of course, those meetings that we've all been mentioning, back-to-back meetings are killer. So I don't have any meeting that starts on the hour or ends on the hour. No 90-minute meetings. Must be 80 minutes with 5 minutes before, 5 minutes at the end. No hour meetings, no 30-minute meetings. So really getting things down, creating space for people to breathe and be human.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I hear, what you're saying in terms of especially just taking the breaks in a day. I think I come down, I sit in front of my computer, and sometimes it's hard for me to break away, but it's so important because when I do it, I feel so much better. And I think it's just important to continue to encourage that everyone does that. So great insight. Caruana, what have you been doing to, personally for well-being?
Well, I think for the first couple of months of this pandemic, I didn't do anything for well-being because we were in Teams engineering and our huge focus was keeping the service up. I just want to say that I do feel like I'm just so grateful to be in an organization that is putting my own well-being at the forefront. I have worked a lot of places and, 25 years in this business, and Microsoft's commitment to all of us makes me feel empowered to make good decisions for myself and to lead those decisions for my team. But I'll tell you, I have become the nagging nanny in my team for everyone to book their vacation. I do think sometimes in this business, there's been a badge of honor. Oh, I've built up 400 hours of vacation time. I never take it. It's a very old school approach to IT. And on the engineering side of the house, I'm like, no, you need to actually unplug. And so we instituted a buddy system. So when I go out, I have someone who literally covers my email, my calendar, my chat. They can't really cover my chats, but they're on my oof message. So I don't feel like when I come back, I'm going to have this flood of stuff to deal with, right? And that is a designated person who texts me or calls me, so I can turn off all notifications on my phone. And I will tell you, all the notifications are already off on my phone. I really don't have them. My boss knows how to find me. My boss's boss knows how to find me. I'm not exactly, invisible. And so I don't really have a lot of notifications on, and that helps me unplug at the end of the day. The last thing I'll share with you is I've reconfigured my home office 5 times. To try to make it work.
That's great, by the way. I love the background.
Oh, thank you. This is the new one. I'm waiting for my device that's going to go on the wall. But what I did do is I got smart lights in my office and I put them on a schedule. So at 6 o'clock, they start to dim and they turn a different color. And that lets me know, oh, I'm supposed to be winding down now and leaving my workspace, right? And they actually turn off at 6:30. If I'm sitting at my desk at 6:30, the lights will turn off around me. because I really needed that help, because I'll get in the zone, especially if I'm building a solution or writing some code or something. I will get in the zone and I will lose all track of time. That and the fact that my dogs have figured out my schedule and they come and actually like pound on they nose the door so that I will come out. It's really cute, actually. But you know, without the meditation and the lights and the space and the support of my husband, I don't know how I'd be doing this job, you know, with the intensity that comes. But I love the support of everyone. I think it's really meaningful.
Great, thank you. Those are some great examples. Really appreciate the insight that all of you provided and just what's working personally for you. I think we all need to just share with our colleagues, you know, what's working, because it's so important. Cyril, I had a question for you, because this has come up a lot, especially as a customer success manager here at Microsoft. I get a lot of questions from customers, you know, how should we be thinking about managing the transition back to work? And I'm just curious if you have any insights into that. And this question I can open up for the entire panel, but thought we'd start with you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think, you know, what we're thinking about, you know, the back to work is, you know, what loosely the industry calls the hybrid work. I think Katie mentioned it right at the top of the hour. And really there, you know, we're trying to center around, let's focus on Microsoft. And then from that, we can learn over the last year what we've needed, and then help our customers learn from that too. And so, you know, we're very fortunate to work in an organization that really wants to help its employees irrespective of where they are. We're a global company, so we're able to learn from China, from countries like Israel that are, you know, further ahead on the vaccine, and sort of their hybrid is a few steps ahead of us. And really, we've started to break that out over the last year between three categories. What is the policy? You know, what is the actual real estate workspaces, and do they have to change, and how do they have to change? And then, of course, the technology. And so we've broken it out into those sort of three areas. Policies are, you know, not simple things. Probably out of all three, the most complicated. Who do you allow back at the office and when and in what order? Who needs to be in the office? Who actually needs to be on the road? And how do you empower them? And how do you think about their interactions maybe with their customers? And is there a policy you'd want to have for that? Then there's the physical space. You know, we have lots of offices around the world with different shapes and sizes, you know, and workspaces based on, you know, the culture of that particular country. However, when, you know, as each, you know, country goes back or has started to go back, like Australia, New Zealand, China, you know, there's different workspaces needed, 6 feet apart, in the early stages going back, even wearing of masks, collaboration spaces, that is enough space for people to collaborate, but give people enough room, deciding on whether conference rooms can be used and by who and how often, and is there, you know, cleaning or cleansing has to happen in between. So lots of policy space that we're thinking about. And then, of course, there's the technology. And the technology, while it's important, probably the easiest component of all of those things. Then the last one, I would say that is not really in those three. It's more the human psyche of it. Like, how do you feel the first day, week, and month that you're working hybrid, or that you go into the office, or you go to see a customer? And how do you navigate that? And, you know, we've spoken a lot about the stress and the mental fatigue of coming into the pandemic and working remotely, but there's likely to be a little bit of like anxiety and stress going back, like not only about your safety, but people worried about other people's safety, and how do they think about that? So there's a lot going on. We're trying to package all these lessons up, and so that we can share it out with all our customers. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll get something soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Cyril. Caruana, I have one more question before we open it up for Q&A. I wanted to ask, you know, during one of our previous sessions, and Katie actually brought it up on this session, you know, starting meetings 5 minutes later, doing, you know, 25-minute meetings or 50-minute meetings. What has Microsoft done, or specifically, really, what has Teams done to help customers surface some of that productivity aha, moments for individuals? Like, how have we done, things that can help people? And I'm asking you because I think you have an interesting perspective from engineering, but everyone is welcome to answer that.
Okay, well, I feel like customers have helped us tremendously understand what they needed, and never doubt that we are a customer-driven engineering organization. Every week we review the feedback we have on tools like user voice, and from our in-product feedback, we meet with customers directly, and so we've had a lot of feedback on that. So we have new features that we'll be rolling out, not totally available worldwide yet, but things like the digital commute built into the tools. But also, even in the way that you manage your individual meeting agendas. So the 5-minute and 10-minute thing we've been talking about, that's also a setting that you can do in Outlook. And one little thing I wanted to mention on that, it's from the beginning of the meeting, not the end. Right? If you try to end your meetings early, people will ignore that. So you start them a few minutes late. And you can do that inside of your Outlook settings, and teams will respect that. You can also do things like have a clear agenda, which you can build in. You can use meeting notes. And one other thing I really wanted to bring to folks' attention is the whiteboard. I just did a listening session with my team to learn about the lessons they've learned while working from home. And one thing I'll tell you is, as a Microsoft employee, sometimes it's important to listen more and talk less. We all tend to talk a lot, and we think in these full sentences. So, there can be a lot of talking going on in a meeting in engineering. But this was a process of actually dedicating time to listening and having people share and use the whiteboard and put stickies up on that digital whiteboard from wherever they were around the world about lessons that they had learned. And just doing something more visual with people and incorporating that into the way that you do meetings can really make your meetings more engaging, along with things like polls and some of those other third-party apps I mentioned earlier. Don't think your team's meeting has to just be the chat and the video and PowerPoint, because there's so much more to making engaging meetings that will keep people more lively. And also having, as a manager or even just a meeting leader, we've heard it's been really helpful when people are clear at the beginning of the meeting. You don't have to have video on for this meeting, right? Just let's get the judgment about using video out of the table, right? I mean, I'm inviting you into my home when I turn on the video. I might not feel like it, and that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm not engaged in your content, right? And so empowering each person to say things like that at the beginning of your meetings, using additional tools. These are some of the things we've heard from customers have been really successful, and they've been successful inside Microsoft. But I feel like we're still learning, right? I really related to what Cyril said. I had to go into the office briefly for an emergency during a situation, and it was really emotional for me to go into the office and there wasn't anyone there. There wasn't a lot of people on the streets. It was so different. It was actually quite upsetting to me. And so I know now when I go back 25% or whatever, that I am going to have that emotional reaction to how different my life is today, because I really loved my old life. And I'm very privileged, and I recognize the privilege, but I still, there is that emotional component to what's happening. So encourage folks to talk about it, right? Use your team's meetings to have an employee check-in or a huddle that's just about sharing how folks are doing, because we know for sure that it's difficult to stay connected and keep morale together. So, bring your compassion to the tech, and we'll meet you halfway by bringing you more tools.
That's great. That's great. No, I really appreciate that insight and that feedback. I think it's just so important. I can actually relate. I recently had to go down to our office in San Francisco, which is in the financial district, to pick up a device, a computer. And it was weird to go down there. I mean, it had been almost a year since I'd been there, and it's still kind of a ghost town down there.
Yeah.
And it just brought back, a lot of memories, which was hard. So I completely hear you there, and makes sense. And it also encouraged everyone. I thought you brought up a couple of really important points. Teams is more than just a meeting and the chat. There's the whiteboard we have, and there's all the other tools like Planner and Forms and polls that you can pull in. I think it's really important to use those. I don't know if you can see Cyril's raising his hand right now. That's another great feature, just to make meetings more dynamic. So I encourage, if you haven't used those features, check them out. definitely. Okay, so I think we're at a good point where we can switch to some Q&A. We've been getting some great questions from the audience. And so I want to read a couple that I've seen come in that I thought would be really good. So this is just open-ended questions. The first one, how do you encourage people to use their cameras in Teams meetings when everyone has been remote for so long? Many people are hesitant to turn them on, but we really are losing that personal connection to people. It will be hard to maintain that with expanded telework if people don't turn on cameras. So curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah,
Camera
I don't mind
bingo.
jumping in a little bit. And then it sounds like everybody has some thoughts here. And I think, this is not, there's no one size fits all here. You got to navigate a little bit. First of all, each organization culture is different. Each individual is different. For me and for others I've seen at Microsoft, it sort of starts with a permission to be yourself, a permission to, maybe you're still in your sweats because you did your workout and you haven't had a shower yet. A permission that maybe your kid's going to walk in because they need something from the printer. Permission that, maybe you don't have your best shirt on that day, or maybe you've got a shirt on that looks cool, but you've got sweats underneath. And it's just permission to be yourself. I mean, that's literally how I'm dressed right now. It's most of the country are dressed like that. Like our politicians are dressed like that. I know it's a scary thought, but everyone works like that in this day and age. And so being real, humbling yourself as an individual or as a leader, and having other people just see like it's a real world out there. And then I think, you'll get those first people who turn on their camera, find ways to interact with them, reward them, and then there'll be a nice interaction. And then sort of, the ball rolls from there. What do you think about Katie? What about you?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think another thing that Caruana said that I thought was so true was set your intention in the beginning of the meeting and just set the expectation or even before the meeting. And I think navigating what meetings are actually quite helpful to have camera on, like discussions. When there's a discussion, it's really helpful to have the camera on. Or if you're talking about something that's sensitive, or, that it's really important to see what sort of feedback you're getting from the other person. One thing we started doing was who's ever controlling the meeting. So we bring the slide down and then actually share the Brady Bunch view. And so then all of a sudden people start turning their cameras on. It was amazing when we started doing that and say, hey, we're going to move into discussion mode. And so if you're comfortable, turn on your camera, and then we show everybody. And then if people see that they're not on that screen, they'll quickly, turn it on. And that seemed to help a lot. And we're still allowing people to sort of opt in.
Right. I love all of that. And, all meetings are better with pets and children. I'm sorry. They just are. And I think we need to accept that in some way. I mean, the humility point Cyril made is great. Using Brady Bunch mode, using together mode, and shifting the scene. If you're done presenting to your slide, stop sharing that slide. It doesn't need to be up on the screen for the next 15 minutes because it's way more engaging to see people's faces. And also, the last thing I'll say about that is there's going to be days that I just don't feel like being on video, even though I usually have video on. And that's okay too. It's really important that we not equate video on with engagement and attention. The video on is really so people can see my engagement and attention. It doesn't mean that that's what creates my engagement. So I've seen a lot of threads online in our tech communities, on Twitter and other places, having these conversations. So, encourage the brave folks who do it, model the behavior you want to see, and set your intention, and that will really help.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So, in my role, I work with customers all the time, and I'm on video. I try to be on video with them because I think it's really important that they see me and it helps with the interaction. But it can be, I'll be honest, it can be exhausting. And at the end of the day, when I've been on video, for most of the day, it's hard. And so one of the things we started doing just on my team for internal meetings is, sometimes just turning the video off when we don't need it. Because a lot of us, when we're, customer facing, we're on video all the time, and that helps. It does help. So I think there's a time and place for video, And when it makes sense, definitely encourage people to use it. But I think it's important to understand that it doesn't always have to be on. And there may be some times when it makes sense not to, like all of you mentioned. Perfect. Let's see. I think we had another good question that I saw. Somebody was asking, how should we prioritize well-being when the service is available on a platform that mixes with work? Shouldn't well-being be separated from the platform? I thought that was an interesting question.
I have many thoughts on that, but Cyril, do you want to go? Do you want to say something? Shall I jump in?
Why don't you go? I'll go after you.
Okay, so humans are one holistic creature, and technology, we believe, should mirror that. It's not possible really to separate what's happening in my personal life or in the middle of my day or how I'm physically feeling from my need to be a productive employee. So the integration, the holistic view of productivity and the holistic view of managing talent and investing in employees is extremely important to get to. I realize that, initially it can seem like they're two opposite things, and we're not trying to break the boundary. People are entitled to their private personal life. But in the flow of work, neurologically, it's very important to have breaks. There's a cycle that your brain goes through that requires rest and recovery. So it does a burst of learning, ingesting new information like neurologically, and then it needs to rest and recover so that it can integrate that knowledge literally into your mind. If we don't start to understand that flow within our work days, we won't actually get the most from people. And given how all our businesses have been disrupted, the competitive pressures many of our organizations are under, we see this in our customers every day. You need the innovation capability of the employees that you have, who really understand your business and can think of new ways to meet the demands that may surround you. So you need to create high-performing teams. And high-performing teams are encouraged by having healthy employees that understand the innovation and rest and recovery neurological cycle, that understand what it's like to have diversity and inclusion, to build listening skills and have that growth mindset. So all of those things are great words we all hear, but physically doing it needs the technology to support that sort of mindfulness and well-being in the flow of that work. And we know from the research and from the work that we've done in testing and in how we co-design these products, really, that we will help employees and their organizations be more productive. So it's a big, I've been a meditation teacher for most of my life outside of work. So the fact that these two things are coming together makes me super happy because I know a lot about the brain and stuff like that. So it's kind of amazing to me that I get to bring my hobby that was always outside of work into the productivity and technical work that I've been doing for so long as well. And I think that that's a huge step forward for this industry and for what we can build in the future together. I'm super excited about it. As you can tell, I could talk about it for a little while, so I will stop now.
No, thank you, Carolina.
Yeah, I would, I'd add to that and say, everything we've spoken about here is really about how do we take ways to intersect from the day that we're working from home. How do we put blockers in? And as humans, okay, so how do we make these meetings shorter? How do we make sure we do our walks? How do we dim our lights at 6 p.m.? These are all things that we've put around us, and we've now trained our dogs to nudge the door at like 6 or 6:30. But really, are there more natural ways in your flow of work that your tools can help you and remind you to go do those things? And so, yes, of course, maybe you're great and you do your meditation at 6:30 or 7 or 8 in the morning before you start your day. But there's a reminder that you need to do, disconnection from the work during the day. And so we want these tools to come and help with that. And so one of the things in Viva is having the Mindspace app embedded in Viva to say, hey, do you think you want to work this long, or do you want to take 5, 10, 15 minutes and do a quick meditation? And here's the Mindspace app right here to help you and help you pause. I think as humans, we all know what is good for us, but do we all do it? Whether it's, exercise or eating or taking a break or spending more time with family, when we get sucked into the work passion that we're in, Like, we often don't put our heads up. So I think there's an interesting moment where technology can find the right balance and sort of be that coach for us and remind us that, hey, take a step and take your time.
Yeah, I just want to add it. I heard Satya say this when we actually made the announcement of Viva. He said, I don't know anymore if I'm actually working from home or sleeping at work, which I think just embodies everything that you have, just said. And I think one thing I have really learned in this past year is the importance of rest and recovery. And more so, than ever. And if you actually follow, high performing athletes and their coaches, they will talk about it is almost sometimes more important, the time and energy that you put into rest and recovery, than the actual workout itself. It's that important. And I'm finding that to be true, for work as well. And so maybe I'm not doing as long of a prep or staying up late, working on a project, but I'm more present, more rested, more, receptive to what's coming at me during the day, which I'm finding, just increasingly more important. So it is really one and the same. And that's probably been the biggest lesson I think all of us have experienced and learned, over this past year.
Great.
I do hope that we actually take all these lessons from this last year and don't lose them as we go back to hybrid or in some cases full work. Like, I still want to hey, should I have a break at lunch and not a working lunch? And should I take a walk, outside at 3 or 4 p.m. to give myself a little bit more focus and energy, and then the meditation pieces that we've spoken about. I really want to hold on to those things. So it's really important.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I want to respect everyone's time today, and we talked about, wrapping up meetings early. So I think we'll end here. First, I want to thank all of you, you panelists, for being here today. I think this was really insightful. We shared a lot of great ideas, not only what you do personally, but how Microsoft can help our customers. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And for all of those out there, we'd love to hear from you. How will you breathe life into work? Please let us know through the survey, and don't forget to enter our raffle. And thank you for your attendance. Again, the survey link will be dropped into the chat, so you can go ahead and fill that out. It is anonymous, but if you'd like to enter the raffle, please enter your contact information, and we will pick 11 lucky winners. Happy St. Patrick's Day and happy birthday, teams. Thank you.
Thank you.